So, most of you know this is the last of my 5 Sundays with you, and it has been a wonderful 5 months for me to be a quarter-time consulting minister to the West Side Unitarian Universalist Church. Of course, I've been here before a few times to preach on a Sunday, but I think it's been 4 or 5 years since I've been here. And although you were grieving the loss of Reverend Russell Elliott, I was too, so were my colleagues here in the Southwest UU Ministers cluster, because Russell was special. And so to be invited to come sort of keep the religious rudder with ministry in the church was a great honor for me and a privilege. And I learned a lot. But this being my last Sunday with you, I was wondering, well, okay, do I spring something new on them again, or should I recap what I've been trying to learn, what I learned by being a part of your congregation? So I'm going to do a little bit of both, because although I have learned a lot more about you in these 5 months, I also learned a lot more about myself and what my ministry could be like in Oak Cliff. So I thank you for that very much. So I want to start with something that written by the Reverend John Shelby Spong, a retired Episcopal bishop. Some of you have read his work, I'm sure. Theologian, radical, very progressive, sometimes the target of what we would call in other faiths an attempt at impeachment or excommunication. But he wrote something in one of his 20 books that I've read that has stuck with me for a long, long time. And as I read this out loud, I'm going to read his words, then I'm going to share the way, as a Unitarian Universalist minister, I always interpret what I hear or what I read. But he wrote this. He said, we must get away from this theistic, supernatural God that imperils our humanity. We must get away from this theistic, supernatural God that imperils our humanity and come back to a God that permeates life so deeply that our humanity becomes the very means through which we experience the divine presence, so that we become the channel through which we find the divine presence. Now, when I read that, I always think, my mind goes to work. We must get away from this theistic, supernatural, magical thinking God that imperils our humanity and come back to life and love in such a way that it permeates so deeply in ourselves that is where we seek out the divine, the sacred, and the holy. That's where we go to find sustenance for our journey together. I entitled this reflection this morning, Because We Love Each Other. Let me just give you a little background on that. When the ministers were meeting at the spring conference at First Dallas UU, we sat to do our work together, and we always begin with our covenant, much as every group in the Unitarian Universalist Church does. And as we began, and we had the printed copies, because the Reverend Burton Carley was not there from Memphis, the first line of what we thought was our covenant was not said. The first line of our covenant did not have this first line, because Burton would always lead us as one of the senior ministers. It was because we love each other, blah, 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 right? Because we love each other, we do what we do. So the first order of business was, holy crap. We got to get that in there. So we added it to our covenant as ministers in the Southwest Unitarian Universalist Ministerial Cluster. I couldn't wait to take it back to my congregation and say, we see our covenant every Sunday. And we do it on purpose, because we want to distinguish from those who are visiting for the first time that we're not a creedal church. We're a covenantal church. So we want to say our covenant out loud together. And we do it, by the way, in English and then in Spanish. I'll come back to that. But it was unanimous, thank goodness, that we changed it to say, because we love each other, we do the following. We pledge the following. We will be like this for each other. Because we love each other. Now, don't get me wrong, we don't love each other, but we're trying to, right? I do love my colleagues, and I do love my congregation, but it's the corporate. It is a constant struggle to love everybody that shows up. But I was taken by the fact that the wisdom with which our forefathers crafted our United States Constitution, it comes up a lot for me as an activist and as a minister, I suppose. But, and just a sidebar, so many of our forefathers were Unitarians and Universalists. I never lose that idea when I know that there are two phrases where it's nowhere more apparent the intent of our Constitution than in the phrases freedom of religion and no religious tests. Freedom of religion and no religious tests. I share that with you today because in my journeys as a Unitarian Universalist minister, partly in my own congregation over these last 11 years, I started my 12th year July 1st, but also when I go to other churches, I realize that sometimes we are actually creating a religious test for who can come and play with us. We've changed that in Oakland, and I hope it will change completely any traces of that here at Westside, because I love you and we love each other. The phrases freedom of religion and no religious tests give us the collective space to explore our own religious journeys, our journeys towards spiritual wholeness, and the inalienable right to change our minds. Everywhere I go as a Unitarian minister and talk to other congregations within our faith tradition, we always lament the fact that we want to be multicultural, multiracial, multi-generational, if we can, in all aspects of our worship, etc. And we're not doing a real good job of it. Oak Cliff has actually become a church that is multiracial, multicultural, multi-generational in worship. Our children actually stay with us for the entire service now. It's a challenge, but it really hasn't changed anything for me as a preaching minister, other than the fact that I can't say that pissed me off or whatever. The kids are present, so and it hasn't hurt my passion in my preaching too much. But when those who are on their way to us have changed their mind about what they think they feel about the religion of their birth, where do they come? Where can they come to work out the idea that maybe I don't believe anymore, really, that God is a guy? Or that I only have one son, and then he sent that son to hell after he tortured him for 3 days and then brought him back. Or that he was born to a virgin. Or that my body is going to be reunited in some perfect form when I go back to heaven, which is this weird place in space and time somewhere other than here, of course, because we're too busy making hell on earth. I hope it's somewhere else, but maybe it could be here. But I always think about the Old Testament story about the Tower of Babel. A lot of people read that story and they get pissed. God, why would you? These people were speaking the same language, they were accomplishing this great tower that were building towards heaven, and God comes and scatters them and makes them talk in different tongues so they don't understand anybody and the project fails. What up? Yes, thank God. Now, of course, the other way of reading the story is that stop looking for heaven in the sky. The problem is you're not creating it where you are. The possibility of that is here with us now. If we want to be multicultural and multiracial in our congregations, the people who come to us from Asian, Latino, or other cultures of color will most likely have been born into a church that is either Christian, Jewish, or Muslim. They will be bringing a doubt about that journey to their time with us. If we won't let them in, if we won't let them reconcile their journey to find out what they truly do believe about their journey, they will not stay. And almost all people of color are born into a religion that is slightly different than Unitarian Universalists. We're 0.1% of the population in this country, and even less elsewhere. If we're going to create beloved community, we're going to need partners. We need to let these people in. The thing that changed in Oak Cliff was simply this. We stopped looking at them to see if they belonged with us, theologically, but whether we could learn from them. The idea that possibly we were incomplete. That they had stories to tell, songs to sing, prayers to share, food to share, dances to dance. They had things to make us better that we could learn from them. Even as they learned, they were safe with us. They could reconcile their journey. This is the American mandate. No religious test and freedom of religion. Of course, we see it violated all the time. At every election season, we see it, right? He can't be president. He's a Mormon. He can't be president. He's a Muslim. Even though he's raised by a Unitarian grandmother and a wife. We're always doing these tests to each other. Every time I read the letters to the editor page, anybody else read those from time to time? Somebody's always, somebody say, no, I don't read those anymore. No, it's hard. But someone is always trying to homogenize our religious inclinations, aren't they? And make us Stepford versions of their religion of choice. And I will tell you, what passes for Christianity in the world today is so un-Christ-like as to make my eyes flutter. But I was not born into this faith either. I came as an angry Catholic. I was angry. I was angry at the latent homophobia, the latent racism, the latent misogyny that always kept women in second class, right? But I will tell you what I found here. I found the freedom to explore and resolve my own journey to where now I can say, yes, at my core DNA, I'm Catholic. There's a lot of that I love. I've risen above that. I've grown into a different, more important religion. And I did it in the Unitarian Universalist tradition. And now I can call myself a Christian. Of course, Christians are going to say, no, you're not. And I'm okay with that. But my point is that all of us can be reconciled in this freedom march to this journey that we share. This past 3 weeks that I've been apart from you, I've had the opportunity to stand to a press conference in front of the district attorney's office on the death penalty. 12 ministers, priests, imams, and rabbis gathered to share for the public our religious statements on the death penalty that are part of our denominational statements. So I can't tell you how similar they were. And to hear that we all shared this thing about corporate killing of anybody diminishes us. It hurts us. It hurts us. And it must be stopped. And it's also costing us $1.5 million in excess for every person we execute in the state of Texas. We could save that $750 million that we spent to do that and turn those into other resources. Also got a chance to go to the Dallas County Commissioner's Court and to be counter-protesters for the people screaming, send those babies back home. And I heard some statements out there. I heard that we were being invaded. Did you know that those 50,000 children are an Obama plot to invade the United States so that they'll all grow up to be Democratic voters, suck all the wealth out of the country in giveaways, and it's all Obama's doing. I said, really, by the time these kids can vote, it's going to be a retirement. But it's his fault. And it's an invasion, by the way. 50,000 unarmed children. How sinister can that be? What are they really up to? That's what I want to know. Oh my God. Anyway. But the best was last Saturday. Some of you were there at the First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church. Our cluster, our North Texas cluster, ran a full all-day program on how to end the new Jim Crow. Those of you that are old enough to know what the Jim Crow laws were. The fact is that we still have Jim Crow, even though that's no longer the law of the land, and how it exists in our systems. But what was really telling about that, and let me make sure I get this exactly right, at that meeting was Bob Ray Sanders. I don't know if you know him. He's a writer from the Star Telegram. He was there. There was an assistant chief of police for Fort Worth in their integrity unit. This is the most handsome African-American man I've ever seen. He kind of looked like the Colonel in Iron Man, you know? And he was, my God, I just wanted to wrap him up and take him back to Dallas with me. The man's heart is just palpable what he's trying to do in the transformation of the Fort Worth Police Department. We also had the assistant district attorney for Dallas County, and specifically their Innocence Project. You know, they've been allowing in Dallas County a lot of DNA testing for clear people, and they're being cleared left, right, and center. The head of Mothers Against Teen Violence, Joy Strickland, and another activist. But this is the point I want to make. We're there all day. We had no idea what their theology was. None. It wasn't about theology. It was about our values. What do we share? How can we make this journey different? How can we create beloved community together? And that's my plea to you. I need you to let go of theology. What you think individually is great. It's yours. It's private. And I don't need to know it. What I need to know is what can we do together and how can we do this to change the world? What do we value? What came out of this thing for those children is that we're going to be partnering with Catholic charities, with all kinds of other churches and groups to provide toiletries and attorneys to help them get through the very complicated immigration process. And so for that, I want to share a poem that came up. It was written by Cynthia Langston-Kirk, and it's just an idea of how to begin to understand what's really going on as people try to come to us. She writes, imagine a place where mercy resides, where love forms every heart, where compassion lived out with grit and determination, a place where lavish signs mark each path barrier-free. Imagine a place where skin tones are celebrated like the hues of tulips in springtime, where language is inspired with symphonies of diversity, where respect schools us in custom and history, and every conversation begins with a vow of reverence. Every conversation begins with a vow of reverence. How Buddhist that is. But radical love requires us to tear down the walls, to eliminate the barriers, to cross the boundaries with genuine warmth and compassion. And I cannot even begin to describe the pride I feel in those in North Texas who are gathered in this values-based initiative, but especially here in Fort Worth, where Catholic Charities is probably the most vibrant, and to find out that we have so much in common with people that we don't think we would, but do. And maybe we can make a difference in the lives of those children and the community we see. But I also hope that we find the energy to change the underlying pathology that creates the reason why these children need to come here. But my message to you, if there's nothing else for these 5 months, here in the Unitarian Universalist tradition, we must seek unity, but not uniformity. Unity, but not uniformity. Unity so we can change the world together. But we're not going to change the world by ourselves. We need partners to do this. And the partners will come from those that we think are not exactly like us. And that's okay. That's got to be okay. Can you take some criticism?
Yeah.
We don't sing enough in this church. My God, I tried to add a third hymn a few Sundays back. He thought I was killing babies. You don't sing enough. You don't stand enough when you sing. And I'm just going to tell you a clip, and I'm counting on it because I go back and my God, we sing 6 hymns per Sunday. 6 hymns. Now, we don't do the children's thing like you guys do anymore. Like I said, they stay with us. We have to do other things. You know, they carry the baskets and get more money than the rest of the people. And they light candles for us. They do all kinds of things. They sit on a magic carpet, most of them, right near me. They stand and sing and dance, and we do certain things. But we do 6 hymns, and we sing 2 or 3 other times. We actually, but they're not big things. But you know, like when we pass the baskets, we sing from you are received to you I give, together we share, and that from this to it. We sing it in both English and Spanish. I'm trying to remember. I'm writing Spanish. A little late, but I'm trying. We also, as I said, do our covenant in English and Spanish. And then we sing as we do our joys and sorrows from when our breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. And then the choir does a special piece of music. And I usually have them dancing when they're coming out of the sanctuary because I'm playing something provocative like Morgan Greenbaum's, when I die, I'm going for whatever. So I played the Rolling Stones last Sunday for the first time, Jumpin' Jack Flash. We need to have more fun here, guys. But this is a great church. I heard somebody say that this church was in trouble. Let me tell you, this church is a great church. I wouldn't have accepted the invitation. I don't need more work. I wouldn't have accepted the invitation, but I love you guys. I love how we partner in the cluster. I love what you've been doing. I had a chance to meet Linda and Mark and others on the board, and I thought, oh man, okay. Or no, I guess Mark was on the team, searching the team. Anyway, so I got to know Linda and her board, and now this new board is phenomenal. Well, they did keep the treasurer, thank goodness. They had a sense to do that. She's amazing. Well, what a great church this is, and what great things that you're trying to accomplish. But I will tell you, this church has not enough color. It has enough variety of age. You've got work to do. And it is, I think, letting go of the certainty that, we know everything, and we're waiting for them that are like us. And I heard the argument that, we're waiting for the people that have never been church to show up here. I want to tell you, the people that are going to show up here are the people that have been church and are questioning what they learned in the church they had no choice for. When certain things become untenable and you start questioning, you're not allowed to do that in other churches. This is who we are. We question everything. But I want you to understand, somebody asked me this morning, how old are you? I had to think about it, but I'm going to turn 66 in October. And I know nothing. I know squat. And I'm on this journey to learn as much as I can, and I know this journey will never be complete. I will die not knowing everything. Dang it. But there is no pot of gold at the end of this life, just more questions. And that's got to be okay. We've got to stop pretending like we know everything and let other people come in and help us become more. And you guys have a great church. And you're growing, but it's not about numbers either. I feel there is this incarnational growth going on. That we're growing spiritually too. And I hope we will continue that. We are making a difference in the lives of others, and our lives are being changed by those that we let in. This is my last Sunday for a while. And so I thought I would, I better get to it too. I don't like to, impose on our time too much. But it being my last Sunday, I thought I would leave you with a dramatic reading of a poem that has meant a lot to me, and then I'm going to do a benediction of my own, but I'm going to do this up here so I can lay this all down. The poem that I wanted to share with you is from Cynthia Langston Kirk. What would happen, she asked, if I filled my pockets with openness? What would happen if I grabbed a thermos half filled with fortitude and crawled into the cave of the Almighty? Nose first, eyes peeled, heart hesitantly following until I was face to face with the raw, pulsating beat of mystery. What if I entered the cave and it looked different than anyone had ever described? What if the cave was too big to be fully known, far too extensive to be comprehended by one person, one group, too vast for one doctrine or one dog? Would I shatter at such a thought, perish from the paradox and the puzzle, shrink and shrivel before the power? Would God be diminished if I lived a question rather than a statement? Would I lose my faith as I discovered the magnitude of grace? Oh, give me the willingness to explore and to stand before you all, stripped of my pretenses, stripped of my rigidity, stripped of self-righteousness in tiny packages, stripped of all that holds me at a distance from you and our world. Dear God, clothe me in curiosity and kindness. because we love each other, we must get away from that theistic supernatural God that is killing us and come back to a love that permeates life so deeply that our humanity becomes the means in which we experience grace. This has been a great 5 months for me. I hope it has been for you too. But I'm going to leave you finally with the benediction. This is again another one. This one called Nights and Days. Yes, Nights and Days. And it's by Adrienne Rich. Anybody read much of her poetry? She's terrific. Here we go. It's called Nights and Days. The stars will come out over and over again, and the hyacinths will rise like flames, and the desolate among us will take to the sun. Our days will run together and stream into years as rivers freeze and burn. Pictures will form and dissolve in my head. And so I ask myself, and I ask you, which of our visions will claim us? Which will be claimed? How will we go on living? How will we touch? What will we know? And what shall we say to each other? May grace bless and keep you. May the grace of God keep us. Please stand with body and our spirit. Please stand and join us in our closing hymn. It's number 113, Where Is Our Holy